Hello, and welcome to tutorial number 32. Yeah, 32 of our LTH tutorial series of 2020, where I'm going to talk about a plugin that's called Monolith. Yes, that's the one. Monolith for Grasshopper, which you can download from Food for Rhino and follow along with this tutorial. So last tutorial, number 31, we already kind of looked into it, and we looked at how to reconstruct a form from a set of slices, a set of medical imagery. And here I'm going to do something a little bit similar. So it's going to be a shorter one. If you want a broader or fuller version, you can check the tutorial number 31. But here I will have much more control over the form that I achieve, right? So if you're not familiar what voxels are, I suggest that you take a look at, again, the previous tutorial, because I explained it thoroughly there. And here, let's just start. So when working with voxels, the first thing that you do is you always construct a base empty voxel world, right? So this kind of a base box, which is completely empty, but it's going to be populated with information, right? So it's going to be subdivided and populated with information. So here I will choose to, in my Monolith tab, I'll choose to construct base voxels, right? Like so. So you can see it just shows me a box. This is basically just the bounding box in which everything is going to be calculated. And if you want it to be bigger, you can by just constructing constructing a box and then just plugging it into the box input here. But I'm pretty happy with the default value of, I believe the box is centered around the center point, and it's let's say radius is 1, right? So it's basically a box that's 2 by 2 by 2. Okay, so that's fine. Then we have a few more options here, which is resolution channels, additional channels, and with what value would we like to fill the box? So resolution-wise, the default is 48, and I think we can. For now, let's keep it as 48, but maybe I'll just create a slider saying that it should go somewhere between something that's very low resolution, 24, and something higher. For now, let's do 96. So I'm just dividing 48 by 2 and multiplying it by 2. So between 24 and 96, and I'll just double click on it and type in 48 to just have that have that value there. Okay, and then we have 3 more inputs. Channels. So channels is basically what kind of different information do these voxels, which we have inside of this box. Right now we have 48 times 48 times 48, which is a big number of voxels. What kind of values or layers of values do these voxels have? So think of it in this way, that each voxel contains a number, or it can contain a number, a color, a flavor, sound, whatever you want, right? So it can contain a lot of information inside of each of this subdivision, each of these voxels. In here, I can choose to either give it a 0, 1, 2, or 3, and as I hover my mouse over it, you can see that 0 means there won't be any channels whatsoever, right? So we won't have any way of how to put in information inside of the voxels. 1 means it's going to only be about the shape. 2 means it's going to be a shape and also another value that's going to talk about materials. And third one is shape, and then red, green, blue channels, which whatever. So for this example, I'll just choose shape only. So that means for this channel, I'll just use a slider of 1, and that channel type is going to be shape only. Additional, this is just basically with a panel I can write flavor. I'm not sure, that's probably not how you write flavor, but and then I basically just manually add an additional channel which is called flavor, right? And then we can say that, you know, some voxels are sweet and others are sour, whatever. We don't need that, so I'll keep this empty. And the last one is fill. So what kind of number do we use to fill all of the voxels before we start adding information into them? By default, it's set to 0. That means that all of the voxels are completely empty. They don't have anything. If we set it all to 1, that means all of the voxels are full, right? And then we kind of remove information. Would need to remove information from it for stuff to show up. So for now, I'll keep it as 0. I think that's reasonable. Okay, so now we have all of the voxels set up. That's good. All of them are empty, and we have only one channel. So each of these. Think of it this way. This large box is divided up into small boxes, right? And each box has, in each row there are 48, in each column there are 48, and in each other row, third dimension, it's also 48 boxes, right? So we have a lot of information inside of here. Empty information for now. All right, now on to the interesting stuff. So before I showed you how to construct image from the medical imagery, or rather how to construct a 3D model from medical imagery, but that doesn't really give us a lot of wiggle room, right, on how to design actually with voxels. So now I'm going to show you these two tools here, Bitmap Blend and Bitmap Loft. And I'll start with Bitmap Loft. So this one is, it's basically, yeah, you all know what loft is, right? So it's the same thing, only that is going to do it with images, right? With JPEG images. So Bitmap Loft, which asks me for a bitmap source and Z value. We'll come back to the Z value in a bit, but for now, bitmap source. So to give it, to make it loft, we need to give it at least 2 bitmap sources, right? So I will do that by going to construct and choosing construct bitmap source right here. And this guy asks us for 3 things: path, channel, and strength. So channel is basically what kind of information will it take away from the image. And here you can see that by default it's set to 6, which is brightness, meaning that pixels that are black are going to be empty, pixels that are white are going to be not empty, right? Are going to be set to 1, right? So black is 0, white is 1. Okay, so that works for us. And for the path, I'll just use file path tool here, connect it, and now we need 2 images. Okay, so let's go to Photoshop, and here again, all of the here I'll just create 2 images. So all of the pixels here right now are white, meaning that if I just take this image and put it in as a voxel grid, it's just going to make a cube for me, right? It's going to fill all of the geometry. So I don't want that. I will invert it to be completely black. And I'll just take a brush tool and I don't know. What do we do? Perhaps we should do something simple now. So I'll just put a dot there. And actually I'll also go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and just add a little bit of blur to it. Just, you know, just in case. Okay, so then we can file, save. I'll just go for desktop. That's not the desktop. Let's go for desktop. And I'll just save it here as test1. Okay? Okay. And now let me undo this. And for the next one, let's go a bit weird. So I will change the size to a smaller one. Oops. A smaller brush size, and I'll just do that's a even smaller brush size. Yeah, something like that. Sure. Whatever. And maybe we can even do that, right? Something that you could not loft properly with regular loft techniques. And then same thing, filter, blur, Gaussian blur, just to soften up the edge a bit. Hit OK, file, save as, test2, save, and hit OK. And notice how I have my image as a rectangle, as a square. So the aspect ratio is 1:1. That's kind of important, or else it's going to stretch, right? So all of your input images need to be, I believe I'm using 320 pixels by 320. So 1:1 ratio. Okay, come back to Rhino, right click on the path tool, node, right click, and then I'll choose to not set one existing file, but rather set many existing files, because I have two of them, right? Select many, and I'll choose test1 and test2. So I'll just choose those two, hit open, and now I have my source here. And as you can see, the output is two different outputs, Monolith, GH, BMP source. So it's internalized completely. Okay, channel, I already talked about it. Bright stuff is going to have value of 1, dark stuff going to have value of 0, everything in between, gray stuff is going to have value of somewhere between 1 and 0, like 0.5. for instance. And then strength is, I have no idea. I believe strength, if it's set to 1, that means it's going to be between 0 and 1. If strength is set to 2, it's going to go between 0 and 2, right? So we don't mess with that. We keep strength as 1. Okay, so we have two sources here, and I'll just connect it like so. And now, we will start lofting those sources, those two bitmap sources, right? So for this, I need to specify vertical locations of these two images, right? So, the key thing here is when it says list of normalized vertical locations for each image plane, the key thing is normalized, meaning that I need to specify two values between 0 and 1, 0 being on the bottom, 1 being in the top. So let me say 0.1 for the first one, and I'll just copy this and holding down the Shift key, connect another slider. Come on, let's do it this way, 0.5, connect it, copy, holding down Shift key, connect the second one, 0.5 as well. Okay, so now for this location, I'll just choose somewhere close to 0.1, and for this, somewhere close to 0.9, right? So the one image is going to be quite close to the bottom, the other one is going to be quite close to the top. All right, so now we have voxels, we have our source, we need to add, and that source is basically just a bunch of values for each. No, it's still not values, it's just images, right? We need to extract values from those images. So to extract values and add them to the voxels. To do that, we will use add sources tool here. Add sources. I plug in voxels, two voxels, and source, I will plug it into the shape input here, like so. It will take a little bit of time to kind of populate all of the voxels with values, but now we have voxels that are not just 0, 0, 0, you know, everywhere. Now they do have some numbers attached to them. And now it's time to construct a freaking mesh from it, right? So to do that, we will go to outputs, get ISO mesh. right? Which will ask me for voxels. So it's not these ones are empty, it's these ones. And it will ask me for a channel, right? And how do we get a channel for it? So it's basically asking, should I interpolate it through shape channel, through flavor channel, through which channel, right? So I'll need another tool that's called get channels, get channel names here. And I only have one channel, right? That's shape. That's because I'm using preset channels with a slider of 1 here. So I'll just connect shape to here, like so. And for ISO value, for now, I'll just use 0.5, right? And connect it like so. That's it. We have a mesh. Nice, huh? So now, there's this mesh here. Oh yeah, and there's the cap tool. Actually, I prefer to use a cap tool because here you can see it's not capping properly. It's not nice, and I don't know how to fix it. So I usually toggle this to false and then cap it by myself later on. So here we have our mesh. Super. And then I will just combine and clean. I'll just clean it up a bit, just to get rid of any unnecessary parts. And for now, let's just do, what do we do? Let's do, can we go to Pufferfish plugin, which is also a great plugin, and go to mesh and ask, or not ask, but force it to close the mesh right here. And is it closed? So I will go also to mesh and ask, is mesh closed here? And it should say with a panel, if we check it. Yeah, it says true. Okay, so that means the mesh is closed. Super. So that's our mesh. And this one is whatever. I will just group this one. So now we're using 2 plugins. We're using Monolith and we're using Pufferfish. And now let me do preview, custom preview. Ooh. Before we do that, let me use unweld mesh. So the reason why the shading is so messed up. Oh, and also we get that part, huh? Oh, Pufferfish. Okay, we will not be using Pufferfish for this. Instead, we will be doing it manually. Or should we do it? Let's try doing it real fast. If I do mesh naked boundary, Vertex naked boundary component, if I use that, and I do boundary surface, so I create a surface here, and I mesh it, so I construct a mesh from it. Can I just use just a regular mesh component here? Okay, so now we have the meat, so to say, and we have the mesh in the top and in the bottom. Okay, and can we join? Mesh join. Just this with this. Yeah. Okay, that works. So we will just be doing it this way. So now we have a joined mesh. Let's do a preview, a custom preview real quick. Swatch. Let's add some color to it. I always like blue. Display preview messages off. Okay. So we have this, right? It's a little bit messy here. Can I unify the mesh and it's not going to be messy anymore? Yes. So if the shading is a bit messy, you can always unify mesh normals and it's going to clean up. And here you can see that it's you know, it's kind of working. Not great, but it is working. Okay, so now we have here these bitmap sources, which I can drag, right, to change the positioning of them, right? And for some reason it's quite slow. So let's do, is it this part that's slow? 54? No, it's just straight up. Yeah, it's this guy here. So there's no way to make it faster. That's fine. For ISO value, actually this one should be faster. If I increase or decrease the ISO value, you can see the blending changes, right? So I'll use, yeah, I'll use a pretty crisp ISO value of 0. Let's go for 0.9 here, and just show you, you know, how far this guy stretches out and how far this guy stretches out. So here, this is for the top, right? I believe it's for the top. So let's say if here I change it to 0.01, almost straight up to the top. Oh, sorry, it was the bottom one. So it almost immediately starts blending, right? If I change this to 0.5, for instance, it's going to kind of extrude and start blending from here. So we have a lot of control here. And I hate looking at it this way because it's, oh my God, it's it doesn't look that nice. So let's make it nicer. To make it nicer, you need to kind of blur it out a little bit, you know, soften it out a little bit because it's pretty rough here. So I'll go to Monolith, not Millipede. I'll go to filters, and here you have a few filters that you can choose from. Blur, Gaussian blur, or Laplacian filter. I'll choose Gaussian blur, just because I think it's going to give me the best result. And you can experiment with all three of these to see what happens. So it basically blurs out the voxels a little bit more. So here, these voxels, I'll connect them to the filter. I'll say that the channel that I'm filtering is the shape channel, right? Like so. And the radius, I have no idea. Right now it's set to 0.03. Maybe it will work, maybe it won't, we'll see. But I'll just connect the voxels, the blurred voxels to the ISO mesh input here. And it kind of does this. And this is getting a little bit better, even though it doesn't look like it, but you'll see. So if radius 0.03, I think it's a bit too much. I'll change the radius to 0.01 to something like this. This is better. And now to make it pretty, remember where we have the resolution? This was low resolution. Let me increase it to 96. It will, of course, take much longer to calculate. Let's just give it a second. There we go. So here we have our loft, which broke right there. It breaks when you have things that are too thin, but that's fine. You can always, where's my freaking, come back here. You can always skip the blurring, for instance. Oh, it still breaks. Oh, that's because of this hole here. So it needs to do that. Huh. Yeah. Okay. So the way it works is, see this hole here? It penetrates, you know, it kind of touches here. So it needs to make that hole for this to work. Either way, I'm getting hung on this. So let's continue on, right? Now we have these two images that are kind of, you know, blending together, and the nice thing about it is that I can kind of probably need to draw on a new layer, do a few more things here, add a blur to them, file, save. JPEG, save, there we go. Yes, it's being used. So I need to clear values here, and then I can save it as a JPEG. Test2, save, yes, replace, hit OK. What? Okay, fine, I'll just save it as test3. Sure, whatever. Save, hit OK. Okay, so now we have an updated version, basically, of one of our slices. So I can go back to path, set many existing files, and choose test3, or rather test1 and test3. Hit open. Wait for it to do its thing. I forgot to reduce the resolution, so it's going to take a little bit of time, but that's fine. While it's doing that, okay, I'll come back to that in a second. So now you can see it updates with these tentacles here. Pretty neat. Okay. Before I forget, this technique works best if you never touch the side of the image, right? If you touch the side, it's going to become a little bit more problematic. Okay, what else? So now we know how it works. What if we have more than 2 slices, right? Let me reduce the resolution back to maybe even 24, because here we don't need it to be that sharp. So here I will set many existing files, and I will already have these files set up, which is basically a duck, a donut, a sphere, and 4 triangles, like these 4 files. I'll hit open, and this kind of works, but the thing about it is, and that's a duck, the thing about it is that we only give it 2 locations while we have 4 files here, right? So that's not great. So what I really like doing is, instead of just doing these 2 sliders, let me get rid of them. I prefer to create a range of numbers, right? And I use a range here. And the amount of numbers or amount of steps that I do is the same amount as how many images I have, right? So let me explain it this way. If we just have a range tool here, and I just kind of connect a panel to here, you can see that the range of numbers will always go between 0 and 1. That's because the domain is set to be between 0 and 1, and we don't need to change that at all. But the steps is the thing that we change. So let me do 5 steps. 5, and we have 6 numbers, which is weird, right? Because with 5 steps, you should have 5 numbers, but the way it works, and I always draw this, when you have a line, perfectly straight line, and you divide it into, and that line, of course, has a start point here and the end point here, right? And you divide it into 2 parts, into 2 segments, right? Right on the middle. It's actually going to have 1, 2, and 3 points, right? It's going to have 3 points. Okay, but if you have the same line and you divide it even more, right? So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 segments. It will have 5 points. It's always going to have +1, like 1 extra point at the end, right? So it doesn't matter what kind of number you plug, or it matters what kind of number you plug in here, but you will always have 1 extra number here. So to mitigate that, I will right-click on the steps N input. I'll go to expression, here, and I'll type in x minus 1, right? So it doesn't matter what kind of number we plug in here, it's always going to give us the same, it's basically subtracting 1 from any number that we give it. Okay, so now our range is set up to work. I'll plug it into Z. And here we have 4 images or 4 sources. So how do we say for the range that you need to do for, how do we extract that number 4? We can do that by measuring the length of the list. So using list length tool, like that, connecting it to the end input here. So it basically just has 4 items in the list and, constructs a range for us. Okay, so we have that going on. That's great. And now we have a duck in the bottom and then those 4 triangles here, and the resolution is very low. So let me just increase the resolution to like 40 or something like that. Maybe blurring, I can turn off the blurring as well. Or can I? Yeah, that's whatever. For now, I'll turn off the blurring, so I'll just use radius of 0 for a bit, like that, and then we'll come back with the blurring in a bit once we have higher resolution to work with. Actually, I do want to see those things connect, so let me do 48 perhaps. 64. Come on. Yeah, it just doesn't want to. Anyway, doesn't matter. Let us, we will make it work in just a second. Let us have more control over it, right? So now the sources, they're basically shuffled. We have no idea what comes in first, what comes in last. So what I'm going to do is I will use list item, like that, and I will extract all 4 of those sources, just like that, right? And let's plug in the first item of the list to the bitmap source, and then we can see that the first item is indeed a duck, right? So then I will, how do we do this? We can either write down for ourselves that the first one is a duck, or we can just kind of memorize. Okay, the second one is going to be probably a donut. Yes. Third one, a sphere, a circle. Yes. And fourth one is going to be those 4 legs. Yes. Okay, that's great. That means it works. And now let's merge, let's use merge, right? And merge them back into one big happy family. Okay, so let's start with a duck, I guess. So a duck is here, and then we add a donut to the duck. Oh, I went it the other way around, sorry. So no. We will, so it starts from the bottom and goes up, right? So in the bottom, we need those 4 legs, right? So I'll just add 4 legs as my D1 input, like that. And I'll maybe, yeah, for now, that's fine. And then those 4 legs, I want them to connect with the donut. So that's this output here, D2. I'll connect it like so. Oh, I know, that's the ISO value. If we decrease the ISO value, eventually, there we go, they will connect. At 0.5, they start connecting. Okay, so so we have that. That's fine, I guess. Then for D3, Like the next slice, I want this donut to close off, so I will use a sphere. Like that, or not a sphere, sorry, just a circle, like that. So now the donut goes until the middle, somewhere here, and then it's just a circle. And then in the top, I want a duck. Nah, there we go, there's the duck. This is so fun. Oh man. Okay. So we have we have this, which is quite a weird design, I know, but bear with me. So the legs right now, I want them to be taller, right? They're a bit, I want them to be taller, basically. So where we have legs coming into D1, I will actually click the plus sign right below the D1 to add one more input here, D2, right? And I'll connect the legs to D2 as well. So it's going to repeat those two slices right at the beginning, like that. But now you can see something messes up, right? And the thing that messes up is here we have 5 elements coming in, while here we only have, we're measuring the list length of how many sources we have, which is 4, right? So it's messing up. To fix that, we straight up just kind of take the merge and connect it to the list length. So we're not measuring the list length of the source, but we're measuring the list length of, how many slices are we actually using. Now this works. So we have that. I like it. It's so weird that I actually like it. Okay. So we have that done, and I hope you kind of get what I mean, with connecting these wires and choosing which slice comes after which. The nice thing is that they never break. If they do, you just kind of decrease the ISO value. That's, by the way, why we use the blurring, to be able to make it thinner or thicker, right? Like that. And now let's blur it. Oh, never mind. Let's blur it a bit more. Not that much, maybe. Or actually, this looks kind of cool, but 0.01. I'll try something like that. What if we don't weld it? It doesn't care. Oh, that's not the weld. Mesh join, unify mesh normals. Yeah, that's whatever. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Perhaps a little bit more blurring should happen. 0.02, not 0.01. Yeah, sure. Let's do it like this. So we have our duck form, and here I will just increase the resolution to 96. You can go 128 if you want to. It just takes too long, so I prefer to not do it too much. Resolution 96, come on. There we go. So it's all soft and nice. And let's bake it out. Bake, default, okay. Move it here. Let's go for Arctic view, maybe. Flip it around. Scale it down to half its size. Or rather squish it down. Yeah. And that's our duck table. Why not? There's one last thing that I want to show before we finish up, and it's here we used a loft. This whole part right here. Actually, this whole part right here is the lofting sequence. But what actually, sorry, Sorry. There we go. Right here, it's the loft. What if we use something different? Bitmap blend. So the way Bitmap blend works, it's also under construct, right here, Bitmap blend. The way it works is basically with loft, you just stack things in the z-axis. With this one, you stack things in xy, yz, zx axes. So here, how do I show it? And also, let me just do it this way. So instead of this source, I connect this source. So right now it's empty. And basically it asks me for 3 sources, right? So I will do copy paste. How do we do this? Manually or automatically? Let's do it this way. I'll make a copy of this just because I can. And then we have our source. I will use list item again. List item for these 4 images. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 images. And I remember the first one was the duck, the last one were the legs, the 4 legs, and this one was the donut, while this one was the sphere. So for now, let's do sphere in XY. Oh shit, I forgot to less resolution. While we're testing things out, let's just do 24. While we're testing things out, low resolution. So so XY, meaning it's going to make a projection of this image from XY plane upwards. And then let's use the same circular image for YZ. Right? So it does a projection sideways. And then ZX. That's that. It's kind of cool, right? But the nice thing about it is that, for instance, for ZX, I can use the donut rather than the sphere. And it's just going to casually add the donut there. Or I can use a duck. It's upside down, but you get the idea, right? So this also gives you a lot of control, right? You can do a lot of crazy stuff with it. Oh, it's so weird. I love it. Wait, okay, so let's design something. Legs are here. Ooh, cool. I never thought that. Yeah, we can do it this way as well. Let's try with a higher resolution. 48. Yeah, that looks cool. Okay, sorry, I'm just playing around now. Okay, so XY are the legs. Let me disconnect these two, this and this. Those are the legs. And then on the sides, I want to have the duck here and the duck here. Maybe a sphere on the other one. Maybe a donut. Yeah, that's good. Okay. So that's how it works, right? I hope you understood it from just me stumbling over it and, you know, kind of messing around. Let me bake it out. Do we increase the resolution? This one is just whatever. So I'm not even going to increase the resolution here. Let me just move it to the side. And the nice thing is that we don't have anything in Rhino, right? We're constructing everything in Grasshopper. So that's how it looks like. That's the mesh. The topology is complete garbage, but we don't care. Arctic. Duck from the side. Donut from the other side. And the 4. Oh, and that's the leg of the duck. Okay. And the 4 things here, and then you can okay. let's do it. Then you can draw a circle, for instance, here. Move it somewhere here. Move it up. Scale it down a little bit. Planar, surface, elite, offset surface. Let me think. 0.1, something like that. Chamfer edge 0.02. These two edges, and then back to Arctic view. Now we have a now we have the weirdest table where you can put in some, some stuff in this nook and cranny, and then you have a duck, and then you have the 4 table legs. You can design a lot of very Dada style stuff here. Okay, we are done with this tutorial. Hope you enjoyed it. And in the next tutorial, we're going to look into how to work with 2 materials at once, right, with these forms. And that's going to be a really cool one. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do, so that you don't miss it. Other than that, I'll see you soon. Bye. Oh, right. Almost forgot. The files here are going to be available to download for my Patreons on the Patreon page. So check out the link in the video description. But you don't need to become a Patreon to follow along, right? So that's just for the lazy people, or the ones that want to support the channel. And now it's really bye.